As another example on processing a file that contains comma-separated values, we want to write a Java program to do the following. It reads the content of a file named student.txt, and this is a sample data inside the file. To understand the format of the data inside the file, it is better that you look at the data while reading the description of the data. So let us do this. It says here that the first line in the file includes column names, and this is the first line. As you can see, it consists of column names, ID, major, and GPA. Also, it says that the data lines in the file are comma separated. So now we know that comma is separating the fields of each record inside the file. Last, it says each line includes a student ID, major, and GPA. And this is clearly identified from the first line. So the first column is ID, the second column is major, the third column is GPA. So each line represents a record for a student. And inside this record, we have three fields. We have the ID for the student, we have the student major, and we have the GPA of that student. Let us first implement this part by reading the content of the file, and then we will see in the second part what is required to do on this data. So let us go to JGrasp. This is the file that we are going to use for our program. It has records only for 4 students. The name of the file is student.txt. As a first step, we are going to write a program to read this data and only show the data on the output screen. Now, to save time, we are going to take the program that we have implemented for reading the transactions of items in a grocery store, and we modify it so that we make it read the records of the students. So let us make a copy. Let us go to the transaction reader program, and this is the program. I'm going to copy only the lines inside the main method. And then we go to our program for student record reader, and inside main method we are going to paste the program. And now we are going to modify this program accordingly so that we make it read the student records. Since each student record consists of ID, major, and GPA fields, then we need to define a variable for each field. First, let us define a variable for the ID. For the ID, we are going to define it as long integer, and for major, it's going to be a string, and for GPA, it's going to be double. Now for the rest of the data, we don't need SKU, we don't need a quantity, but we need line number as an integer that keeps a track of how many lines did we read from the file. It starts from 1 because we are going to skip the header line, which is the first line inside the file. The price is not needed, description is not needed, and this is all the data we have for our program. For the rest of the program, we are not going to make a lot of changes. First, we need to change the file name. Instead of transactions, we are going to open student.txt, and inside the while loop, the first field will be for the ID, and ID is long integer, so the wrapper class is long, and the method is parse long. And for the second field, it is already a string because we need to read it into major. And for the third field, it is GPA, and it is double, so we read it using the parse double method. And for description, we just simply remove it. And we're going to have a print statement that will print what we have read from the file. So we will write system.out.println. We will print ID, followed by a space, then major, followed by a space, then GPA. And the rest will be removed from the program. So let us make sure that we don't have any extra variables so that we get syntax error. So now the program is complete. Save it and let us check if it has any errors. When we run the program, there is a problem. Yes, we should put equal here. It seems that we forgot to put equal. Now run the program again. And as you can see that the program has read the data inside the file successfully. And this completes the first step for our program. After implementing the first part, In part 2, it is required to count number of students, number of CS students, and number of CS students with GPA below 2. And in part 3, instead of writing the results on the output screen, it is required to write the results into a file named result.txt. This is a sample output after writing the results into an output file called result. As you can see, that number of students according to the sample data we have in student.txt is equal to 4. And number of CS students, as you can see, the first 2 students are CS students, and those CS students with low GPA is only 1, which is the last student. So let us do these 2 parts on JGrasp. To count the number of students, there is no need to define a separate variable for that. You can get the number of students from the variable line number, because line number gives you how many lines did you read from the file. And since we have a header line, so if I want to know how many students, simply I subtract 1 from line number, and we will get the number of students. So let us display this information on the output screen first, and then we will transfer this data into an output file. So after exiting from the loop, here we write system.out.println, and we print this is number of students. And here we need to display how many students from the line number. So it will be line number minus 1, and it will give us how many students do we have inside the file. Our next task is to count how many CS students do we have inside the file. And to look for the number of CS students, we need to check for the major. Any student whose major is CS will be considered as a CS student. So we need a counter. So let us go before the loop. And here we are going to define a counter, and we are going to call it CS students, and we will initialize it to 0. Then inside the loop, we need to check if the major is CS, then we increment this counter. And since major is a string, so we cannot use equal. So we will say if major dot equals ignore case CS, and then inside we will increment the value for CS students. And when we exit the loop, here we need to display a message system.out.println by saying that the number of CS students, it will be equal to CS students. Our next task is to count how many CS students have GPA below 2. So we need a counter for that. So let us go up, and before the loop, we are going to define a counter. We are going to call it CS low GPA, and we will initialize it to 0. And after testing for the major, if it is equal to CS, then inside we need to check for GPA. So we say if GPA is below 2, then we will increment this variable, which is called CS low GPA plus. After we exit the loop, we need to display this value. So we say system.out.println, and here we'll say that the number of CS students with low GPA, and we display this value, which is equal to CS low GPA. And this completes the implementation of the 3 tasks. But the results are displayed on the output screen. So after we finish from testing the program, we will change the program and make it right into an output file. So let us run the program, but it seems here we are missing a bracket. So let us test the program first by running and compiling the program at the same time. So we have a problem here, syntax error. We forgot to increment the variable, so we need to add a plus and run the program again. So the program is run successfully without any errors. So number of students 4, CS students 2, and CS students with low GPA is equal to 1. Now we have finished the implementation of the program. Now what is left is that we need to modify it, and instead of displaying the results on the output screen, we are going to direct the output to an output file called results.txt. So let us make these changes. So let us open a file for writing. So we go up, and here we are going to define a print writer variable, and we are going to call it out file, and we will initialize it to null. And inside we open it, and we will say that out file is equal to new print writer, and we supply the name, which is result.txt, and this is the name of the file. And then every write on the output screen will be directed to the file. So instead of writing system.out, we are going to write out file. So we will copy it, and here we are going to paste it, and here also we are going to paste it for the last print. And now after we finish, we need to close both files. And by the way, we forgot to close both files. So we need to close both files. So here we need to close the in file, and also we need to close the out file streams. Now let us run the program. It's given us this problem because we need to import the class definition for a print writer. So here we need to say import java.io.print writer. And now run the program again. So the program has run successfully, but we forgot to remove this output that we have used before for testing our program. So let us now check for our file. So to open the file, you go open, and the name of the file was called results. So now when we open the file, as you can see, everything that was displayed on the output screen was directed into the file. And this completes the implementation of our program.